Good evening, everybody. Volume. So you will notice that we are not in our usual location. This is my creative world. Those of you who have watched the video, you might recognize or watched the playlist, you might recognize my borehole driller over there in the distance. This is my creative world. I actually did switch it over into survival, but I'm using creative tools, so I don't actually need to collect all the resources to build this monstrosity that we're looking at right here. I just finished testing it. I'm not going to say it's perfect yet. It's definitely almost there, making some progress. I did drill a nice big hole uh, back there a little ways that was all stone and ice, but I do actually have a deposit here. So we are going to test this out in this location, just as a demonstration here, and I'll walk through it a little bit as it's going. So I've got it all on a programming block that operates the drill head we've got here. I got the idea for the drill head from Patrick somebody. I'll put a link on the card when I actually upload it, so I can give credit where it's due, with the pistons and the conveyors so that you can pack 10 pistons in a much tighter spot than you would if you actually put them lined up one end to end. And we've got how many drills? 8, 9 drills to go down here, and this probably won't go quite 100 meters given how high up the drills start, or the pistons start here, because this is the first piston right here, right below that ice marker. That's actually the top piston. All the other ones we're going to go below are going to end up below that one, so it'll basically go about 100 meters below that, give or take. But that should be plenty to get us to this silicon deposit here. We might not get all the way there in the first run just because this does pull up a lot of cargo, and part of the thing that the scripting block is doing is it's going to stop the drills and pull it back up when those 3 cargo containers there are full, so that we can do some processing and cut down on weight and space and not start loading up the drills, because if you load up the drills, then the drills get heavier and they become much more difficult to manipulate, and your pistons start shaking a lot more even with inertia tensors turned on. Just because the rotor's spinning that weight around. But yeah, so we got 3 large cargo containers here. We got a programmable block there in front of the cargo container that's running everything. I put a survival kit on here since I did switch it over to survival, just with creative tools, so I do have to worry about my suit energy and stuff like that. And when I fall, I hurt myself. Oh, prick us, do we not bleed? Then we've got some hydrogen engines on here for power. Got some H2O or some O2H2. I always want to do it the other way around. O2H2 generators there between the hydrogen tanks, and some basic refineries between the large cargo containers. I do still need to attach some assemblers to this, but that's pretty straightforward. I don't have to worry too much about whether or not that's going to work the way I expect it to. But we can watch the cargo roll in here. There's still a bunch of stuff in here from when I did the previous holes. You can see we got a bunch of iron, and we still got a bunch of ice, and we're getting more of it. So this is pretty good for generating just regular resources. This is probably going to end up being my mobile base, but we have actually gotten into the silicon, it looks like, already, and we're getting a pretty decent amount of it. That's a lot of silicon right there. I mean, that we're going to end up with a lot more silicon than we have in the survival base back in the other world, just from drilling down to it. But the idea here is that once this hole is drilled down to the level where the silicon is found, we'll set up another little more permanent fixture that's not on wheels and doesn't move around, that will just kind of spread outwards and pull up all of the silicon in the deposit there. So we'll drill all the way through it. We'll know how thick the band is, and we'll know that it extends however far out it happens to extend. And then we'll be able to attach drills to some horizontally facing pistons to push the drills out that way, and basically drill around and sideways and kind of pancake. But I did drive over here. If this finishes without the video getting too crazy long, I will just drive it around a little bit, because we don't actually need any of these resources. I mean, this is really just a test world here. But yeah, we've got 8 wheels. Only the front one's actually involved in steering. Oop, I forgot to do that. So this is working fairly well, despite the fact that I didn't put the parking brake on and I didn't extend my feet here. So the idea is that you want to make sure that you're not going to go anywhere when you're drilling, because you can definitely snap your bit that way. Hopefully we won't snap our bit doing this. But this will at least try. Doesn't really matter if it does or not. It'll at least try to lift the whole platform up, but we've got a lot of weight on here now, so it's probably not going to work. You can see it didn't really work. But so we're definitely firmly planted now because all 4 of those clamps are stuck to the ground. I should have done that before I actually started the drill up. But we've still got a bunch of ice in here from the last hole that I was digging, even more from the hole that we're digging now. And we are pulling up a bunch of resources and filling up our 3rd large cargo container now. And it looks like we are getting ice and stone now, so we've already gone through the silicon deposit. And how's that coming with refining it? I thought I turned that off. Oh, because it's pushing it out of the drill, it doesn't care if the conveyor's turned off or not. Alright, well, I didn't want to connect to the conveyor so I can get hydrogen that way, but oh well. I'll add some logic to my inventory management to pull stuff out of the survival kit at some point. Like I said, there's still a little bit of work that I think needs to be done with the script, but it operates the drill, and that's really the primary purpose of it, is to actually make the drill do what it needs to do and to stop it when the cargo containers get full. And you can see with the custom LEDs we've got here, I actually set up the flight seat to display our cargo capacity. It'll go up to 95% before it starts pulling up. Once it gets past 95, it's going to start filling the drills. You know, it'll probably start filling the drills a little bit even on the way back up. And, you know, we don't want to have too much weight in the drills, otherwise we're going to have trouble pulling the pistons back up. So we'll go ahead and take a wander around. We got an ore detector on here so we can see what's going on. We got an antenna on here so we can broadcast what the ore detector picks up to our HUD when we're not sitting in the flight seat. I mentioned we've got basic refineries. We've got O2H2 generators. Those 2 O2H2 generators are enough to operate one of these hydrogen engines. I was actually running all of them for a little bit just to fill them up with hydrogen, but now I'm only running one for power purposes, and it's enough to run everything that we're running, as well as put a little bit of charge on the batteries. So the batteries are almost charged now. They were at the usual 25% when we first installed them. They're now up over 75. I think it had a little less, about an hour left. So we got to 95. It comes up a lot faster than it goes down. That's another advantage of the scripting block. When you just hit reverse, you can't adjust the speed. When you have the scripting block, you can tell it exactly what velocity you want it to go when. So we're coming up here, and once this is fully retracted, it will tilt it back and lock it into place with this tower clamp here, and it'll just wait until the cargo capacity goes back down to the point where we're only using 40%, and we can monitor that here on the flight seat LCD. You can see we are over 95, but it doesn't look like we got all the way up to 100, so that's a good thing. That means we didn't actually start filling stuff into the drills. Now, how long this will take to actually start emptying out is really anybody's guess, because the issue is that we've got some pretty full cargo containers. So we're going to be trying to fill up the refinery basically, and it's doing it with the silicon, which takes a little bit longer to process. So that's something else that we might want to put into the inventory management here, is to push stone into that first slot so that we can process stone first, because we want to get that out of there, because that'll then be gone. We don't have to worry about it, and the weight issues will go down severely when all that stone is out of there, because that happens relatively quickly. Whereas it does take some time to actually refine silicon compared to stone. Yeah, see, it crammed the silicon in there anyway. I wasn't quick enough. Still pulled in some silicon. Wow, it really wants to pull in some silicon to that basic refinery, doesn't it? Inventory management scripts are your friend. I think it tries to pull out of this one first. Fit all that in there? Yeah, we can fit all that in there. Let's see if I shove stuff in here. Is it going to pull stuff back out of here? Or is it going to, yeah, it's going to pull it back out of here. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll start shifting the stone over to this one. Pull the ice out too, at least what we can fit. This one's full, most of it's ice. But the ice is only being processed by the O2H2 generators, so we can't really speed that along by monkeying with the order of stuff, because all the ice just goes into these two. It doesn't go anywhere else. So now there's stone first in both of these large cargo containers. If I pull this silicon out, do I end up with silicon going back in? No, it's pulling stone in so far. Alright, good. I'll pull this silicon out too. Alright, good. Now it's doing stone. But yeah, you can see how quick that was with filling up even 3 large cargo containers with stone and ice. But we did get some silicon, so if we get out of here and go take a look at the nice little hole that we dug. Ooh, wow, there's a band of ice there. Oh no, that's the same ice. There's a band of silicon here is what this is. This isn't rock, this is silicon. And then this is rock down here. So what we would do is we would build something with maybe 1 or 2 drills high right around here, and spin it around a couple times to make some room, and then attach it to pistons and have those pistons extending as it spins, and we'd end up with tons of silicon and some ice by accident too, but that's not a problem. I mean, honestly, in this particular circumstance, that's a good thing. One of the issues I mentioned yesterday in the video was, how are we going to power everything? But if we've got ice coming in at the same time, we can just put an O2H2 generator and some hydrogen engines on there, and that's power handled. Because this really doesn't take a whole lot of power compared to what a hydrogen engine can put out. A hydrogen engine on a large grid will put out up to 5 megawatts, and that is plenty to run a bunch of refineries. Now, obviously, it'll take more hydrogen to actually output that level of power. We're putting out that level of power now on this hydrogen engine just because we're charging batteries. And we're not even actually doing quite that because the battery's in auto mode rather than recharge mode, so it will run some stuff off of the battery power. But yeah, we're down to 48 minutes to charge. Once that 48 minutes is up, once these batteries are fully charged, our hydrogen consumption rate is going to go way down. We'll be able to start filling these tanks a lot faster. But you can see that we've got all 3 of these hydrogen engines filled with 500,000 liters of hydrogen each, and we're already making some pretty good progress in terms of filling up these 3 hydrogen tanks. So what else should we go over here? Before I did the programming block, I did set up the hotbar here. So item 1, and some of these are still useful even with the programming block. So item 1, there's the parking brake. 2 is the platform supports underneath, and 3 is the platform clamps underneath the landing gears. This is our drill operations hotbar. Item 1 there is the tower clamp. 2 reverses the piston. 3, or I'm sorry, not the piston. 2 reverses the rotor. 3 locks the rotor. That's definitely much better handled by the script, because the script will lock it when it's actually perfectly upright, whereas if I'm trying to do it, then it'll bounce a little bit on its way up. Um, and if I catch the lock, it might not be straight. And item 9 there is actually the programming block control. We've got a command set up there so that we can toggle on and off drilling mode. And we can actually set it so that, whether it's done or not, it won't send the drill back down. It'll automatically turn drilling mode off when the pistons are fully extended, because there's no point in sending it back down again. But usually the pistons don't fully extend until you've done 2 or 3 trips up and down to, fill up with a bunch of resources before that. So that's hotbar number 2. Hotbar number 3 here, this is actually the drills controls. 1 and 2 there, the rotor that the drills are attached to. 3 is obviously the drills, and 4 is the group of the drilling pistons, those 10 pistons that are stretching the drill down. And then 4 here, this is our processing. We've got all of the O2H2 generators on item 1, all of the refineries on 2, the 3 hydrogen engines being controlled separately on 3, 4, and 5, because we don't need all 3 of them most of the time. I really can't imagine a circumstance, honestly, where we would need all 3 of those unless we're really, really, really desperately trying to charge all those batteries. Hotbar 5 is the battery controls. I think one of them goes into recharge mode, one of them goes into discharge mode. I don't honestly remember which is which unless I push them, and I'm not going to do that because I don't need to. And that's all the hotbars that we've got there. We will add the assemblers to 4 when we get those installed. And we might actually do something with 6 at some point, because with as long as this takes to actually process resources and do the drilling, and it's a lot more reliable than that borehole drill was. Like, I haven't had any explosions or attacks of clang with this particular machine since I got the scripting block just to this state. And like I said, the scripting block is still not perfect. You saw that it, lets the inventory get kind of mixed around to the point where it's processing the slower resources before the faster ones. And that's, but that's all about efficiency. That's not actually about safety. So this is a pretty safe contraption so far, as I've seen. So we could basically just, leave it here and go somewhere. And the best way to do that would be if we actually did have a ship that we could dock on here. And we've got plenty of open conveyor ports to set up a connector and do that. We could also set up some connectors on the side here to spit out extra resources if we wanted to, but we've got the means for processing everything here, with the exception of the some of the ores that we're actually going to drill out. Like if we were over a gold or a silver deposit, obviously we wouldn't be able to process those with the basic refinery. But the whole point would be to collect that and have it in a large cargo container. But either so, having a connector on top there to actually be able to dock up a ship and offload some of those resources, take them back to the a full refinery back at a base, or maybe even have some sort of piston controlled connector like we have at the base in survival, so that we can kind of adjust it and match it up to something, match it up to a local base or a local refinery, to be able to start processing those resources. Because I mean, again, the point of this, and if we were actually in survival right now, we would be done here. We'd be moving on to the next one, because the whole point of this was to get to the deposit, so we actually knew where it was. At this point, we would be using the assembler to put the components together to actually build a permanent mining outpost, semi-permanent anyway, until the ores are depleted. And then once that was done, once we finished assembling all those parts, we'd be done with the rover here. We'd be able to move it on to the next one. But if we chose not to do that, if we had to go deeper, if we didn't get the silicon as easily as we did here, we'd be able to continue drilling up and down and just kind of wander off and come back to it when we got around to it. But anyway, so this is how this is all set up, and there's a healthy amount of resources in this, I'm sure. It's all basic resources. I mean, there's some cobalt in here for the large cargo containers, and a little bit of silver for the survival kit, but the survival kit can be built last, and it's honestly not even entirely necessary. You only really need the survival kit if you desperately want to, recharge your hydrogen through the same interface that you would use to recharge your energy. I mean, you can sit in the flight seat and it'll recharge your energy and your health. Does it do your health? I don't remember if it does your health. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, because the idea here is that we're not going to be out engaging pirates or anything crazy like that. We're just going to mostly be worried about suit energy. And with all these hydrogen tanks that we've got here, Even just a little bit of ice drilling will get us the ability to refill our hydrogen tanks, for whatever our needs are when we're actually building the mining outpost here. What else? Anything else? I suppose I can take a quick look at the code, but I'm probably going to get sucked into a rabbit hole if I try to do that. So I'll make a distinct point of trying to do that quickly and, not going into too much detail. If you're interested in more detail, I can always make a separate video about that. But, this is supposed to be a survival series, and this is basically just kind of a demonstration of something I threw together in creative that takes a whole lot of resources. Although, again, something I learned today, doing this was the ability to manipulate these custom LCDs using scripts. So you're not just limited to what's included here. You've got your where is it? No, wait a minute. Yeah, it's where is it? It's here. So you can set it up to run the standard scripts that are included, and that's what we're doing over on the programming block. We're just showing our energy and hydrogen capacity over here. But you can actually access these through the programming block and have them display custom content as well. I've got the clock there too. You can see I'm doing this really, really late. Usually I try to record my videos before the premiere of the next one, so I'm a little bit like a day ahead. But I was just wrapping this up, and I was actually a couple minutes late getting onto the premiere, so I didn't get a chance to finish this video. By the way, if people are watching the videos and haven't noticed that I try to do a premiere at 11 o'clock each night. I do that 11 o'clock Eastern time, so if you'd like to join the premiere, join the chat, have a conversation, I'd be more than happy to have you there. Share your thoughts, anything you'd like to see. If you don't feel like leaving a comment, that'd be great. But yeah, so code. I was going to go through code. Just real quick, we've got, about 10 minutes left before I try to cut off the episodes usually, so I think we can do that, and there's not really a whole lot else I can think of to go through here. So a lot of you, if you've watched the borehole playlist, you've seen kind of how I write code. I didn't bother doing the tick text thing or whatever like that because it's not really that important. I was just trying to do this quick and dirty, and I think it still looks pretty good, but I didn't bother with some of that debugging stuff that I would usually do. So we've got some lists to hold our cargo containers, our drills, and our drilling pistons specifically. I'll show you how we filter those out later. We've got something to hold the drill clamp, the tower rotor, and the drill rotor. We've got access to the flight seat's text surface. This is, it's called the flight seat, but I just went ahead and went straight to the text surface because I have no use for the flight seat in the programming block, so I just went straight to that data type. We've got a couple of booleans here, true false, to determine whether or not we're currently drilling and whether or not the scripting block is managing the drilling. So first we set our update frequency, get all of our cargo boxes, get all of our drills. Now here's where we filter out the pistons because there are pistons on the bottom here too, remember. But there's a group called drill pistons. So you get a group, get block group with name, and then that basically turns it into a mini grid terminal system. So you can use all the same functions, but it'll just be limited to the blocks that are in the group. So then we get the pistons that are in the group, and that gives us just those pistons. This is the drill clamp. It's a landing gear, the tower rotor, it's a motor stator. I'm not sure why that's the data type, but it is. There's a drill rotor, also a motor stator. And then this is the flight seat. We get the flight seat itself as an IMI cockpit because it's a cockpit, but then we just get surface 0 because there's only the one surface on the flight seat. Nice and easy. We're not using save. Might be useful just because I've noticed some state issues when I restart the code. So I'm going to go out of my way not to change anything so we don't screw anything up here. Here we're processing the argument. We send in the drill argument. We'll flip the managed drilling flag. So if you're in the middle of drilling, it will actually immediately stop the drill because we're checking for that condition right here, and it stops. Then we check our cargo percentage. We check and see if cargo is full. It returns back a percentage. Uses 0, capacity 0. Go through each of the cargo boxes, pull the inventory, add the current volume, add the max volume, return used over capacity. So that's percentage. Then we echo the percentage out to the console and actually write it out to the flight seat. If cargo percentage is over 95%, or we've turned off managed drilling, or we're fully extended. If the pistons are fully extended, we start off with it equal to true, go through each of the pistons. If it's still fully extended and the current piston is fully extended, we'll keep it true. Otherwise, it'll flip to false. If it's false, Oh, wait a minute. No, if extended is true, if we're fully extended, managed drilling is false. So we'll flip off the managed drilling and we won't start again when we get back up because there's no sense in doing that. Then we return extended. That's how we determine whether or not we're going to stop drilling. Tell the flight seat that we've stopped, we're full, or we stopped, whatever the reason is. Otherwise, if the cargo percentage is less than 40% and we're not drilling already and we are using the script to manage drilling, start drilling. Tell the flight seat that we've started drilling. If we are drilling, say we're drilling. If we're not drilling, at this point, the only option left is that we're processing. So we're just sitting there waiting, and that's currently what it'll be displaying on the flight seat if we went over to check. So start the drilling. If the drill clamp's locked, unlock it. Then it'll stop because these are all else conditions. If the drill clamp is already unlocked, then we'll say if the tower rotor is less than 0, because that's, if it's folded back, it's going to be less than 0. So if it's less than 0, then turn the rotor on, set it to 0.5 RPMs. If the tower rotor is already fully upright, then we'll lock the tower rotor, turn on the drill rotor at 6 RPMs, and then turn all the drills on and extend all the pistons at 0.01 meters per second. With all 10 pistons, that amounts to 0.1 meters per second, which is a pretty good pace. And then we set the is drilling flag to true so we don't come in here and try to do this stuff again because that just gets messy. Then, like I said, when we have too much cargo or we've told it to stop or we're fully extended, we will stop drilling. The stop drilling one's a little bit more complicated just by virtue of primarily the fact that we have to calculate the angle because it's all in radians even though it's displayed in degrees. And most people think in degrees. I don't know many people who say, oh, well, that's a pi over 2 angle. No, it's 90 degrees. Anyway, so if we're start off saying retracted is true. It's usually not true, but then check each piston. If the piston is greater than 0, then set the piston velocity to minus 0.1. We can go a lot faster on our way up than we do on our way down because we don't have to worry about the drill getting bound. But because that piston is not fully retracted there, retracted is now false. Once we are retracted, set the piston velocity to 0, so stop it. Then after we've gone through all the pistons, if we're fully retracted, go through all the drills, turn them off, turn off the drill rotor, and then if the tower rotor is greater than negative 90 degrees, then turn the tower rotor on, set it to negative 0.5, so it'll roll back. If we are at, if we're greater or less than or equal to negative 90 degrees, then if the drill clamp isn't locked, turn off the tower rotor, lock the drill clamp, is drilling is now false. That's it. It's really pretty straightforward. We've got this toggle rotor function here. You can send it true or false. It'll set the enabled state to what you send it. It'll put the rotor lock to the opposite state. So, if you're enabling the rotor, you want the rotor lock off. If you're disabling the rotor, you want the rotor lock on. And it'll set the target velocity also. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple script, and I managed not to go over time, and I think I went in pretty decent detail about how this all works, and if you want to pause the video at various points, you could even copy this. If anybody's really all that interested, I suppose I could put all this stuff up on the workshop. I've never really done that, so I'd have to figure it out, and there are subgrids, so if you're trying to build it in survival mode from the blueprint, I think you might have some issues. But you can at least get the script if, like I said, if anybody's interested in doing that, I'll figure it out, but I'm not completely happy with it yet, so I'm probably not going to upload it unless somebody begs. Anyway, I think that's it for today. Tomorrow we will be back in the survival map, and since this does take so many resources to build, and there's some other stuff that we want to have the ability to do at the same time, as we're building this and improving this, I probably will go ahead and build a ship that can actually fly. Might do that based on the battery that we've got sitting out there with a little bit of power left in it. If nothing else, we'll kind of use that as a scout. Maybe just do a very basic ship, maybe even one that doesn't have a cockpit on it even, just so that it can kind of fly around and see if there are any cool resources areas that we missed. And the nice thing will be that if we attach it to this thing, if we're driving around and we come up to like a roadblock, some sort of terrain that it has trouble handling, which I'm not sure that I've only been driving it around on the ice lake so far. So I mean, if I try to drive it around on a little bit more bumpy terrain, I might have some issues in some places. But I think it should be able to handle a lot of stuff. I mean, it's got 8 wheels here. The suspension's pretty good on that, and the power is pretty good on that. So it should be able to handle a lot of terrain. But if we come up to an obstacle that we can't handle, we can send that little probe up kind of as a scout to find a way around to where we need to go. So we'll probably do something with that. And we'll at least start building this. I think it's going to be a couple episodes of actually, putting this together. Um, but we'll try to come up with something, vaguely productive that we can finish in a half hour, so that you don't just have to spend, a half hour watching me try to figure out how to replace blocks here. Um, it's a pretty simple design, so I think I should be able to recreate most of it fairly accurately. And I don't know that I'm really going to want to tweak all that much of it. Um, One thing I know I'll want to tweak is I'll want to change the LCD here so that it's actually displaying something useful. I don't find that particularly useful. I'll at least display what I've got on the flight seat and probably some other information too, like our um, maybe actually a breakdown of what we've got in terms of components and ores and ingots and stuff. That might need a separate LCD for that, honestly. Show our hydrogen tank capacity, show our, the amount of ice specifically that we have, show our battery capacities, that sort of thing. Um, just basically provide some more useful information that maybe wouldn't fit too well on just the flight seat LCD. See if we can fit it on here a little bit better, or set up some other information panels around here. But that's really the main tweaks that I would want to make to that, and like I said, some refinements to the script and how it manages inventory and makes sure things go where they need to go in the order they need to go there. Anyway, I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. Anybody has any questions, by all means, ask me in the comments. I appreciate likes. I appreciate subscriptions. I'm a YouTuber now, after all, apparently. I definitely consider myself an amateur one and not very good at it, but I hope everybody's enjoying the content anyway. We are going to be playing Space Engineers for a little while here. Probably switch to some other games at some point, but I think there's plenty to do in Space Engineers at this point, and I don't want to, anybody who's watching it at this point is watching me for Space Engineers, not for anything else. So I don't want to leave anybody hanging and say, well, what's going on with Space Engineers? So we're going to stick with this for a while. Although if there's any other games anybody would like to see, by all means let me know and we'll get something started. Um, I've been thinking about getting into some Kerbal Space Program. Been thinking about getting into some Crusader Kings, uh, stuff like that. Anyway, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. See y'all tomorrow. Bye.